Hi everyone, in this video we are going to make a yoga center website using only HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So this is the page that we are going to make in this video. So first I have created this page in Figma. This is the design that I have created. And then I have converted this design into a website using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So here in this design I have used a container of width 1280 pixel and I have used 12 column grid. So this is the layout and this is the design. So let's see. So we have this navigation section at the top and then we have this hero section, and if you can see we have this nice scale in and scale out effect on this image. Then we have some cards and this is the about section. After this we have this service section, then our instructor, and then we have this testimony in which I have used a carousel. I'll teach you how to implement this carousel. Then we have this section and we have this program section, and finally we have this footer. So this website is completely responsive. So if I shrink down the page and we have this navigation menu, this hamburger icon appears when we shrink down the page to a mobile version, and all the elements are neatly stacked vertically. So this is what we are going to make. So let's start. So here I have opened a VS Code and open up a folder called yoga. Inside this yoga folder I have this images folder which contains all the images that we are going to use for the page, and here I have created index.html file, style.css file in which we are going to write the styles, and app.js file in which we are going to write the JavaScript. So this readme.md file contains this box icon that we are going to use for the page. Just pasted all the icons that we are going to use in the page. So back in the index.html file, first we need to write the markup. And the first thing we need to do is to insert the basic structure or the boilerplate that every HTML page has. So here I can use emmet for this. Just write exclamation mark and press tab. So this is the boilerplate code. Now in here, let's first change the title to yoga website, and then I'm going to link up the style.css file. So link style.css file. Since we are going to use box icon, first add the box icon. So go to boxicons.com, click on this usage, and in here copy this link and paste it before the style.css file. Now let's write the markup for the navigation section. So a navigation bar is divided into two parts, this top part and this bottom part. So what I'm going to do is inside this body I'll use the nav tag and I will give it a class called container. So this container will act as a wrapper and the width of this will be 1280 pixel. Now inside this nav I'll have the top nav. This will be a div, and then I'm going to create another div, and this will be a bottom nav. Now in the top nav we have this social links and we have this contact information. So inside the top nav I'm going to create a div with the class icons, and inside this div I'm going to just paste these. I'm just going to paste this. So you can easily find this code in the box icon website. Just go here, click on this, and in here if you write Facebook you'll get this. Click here and click on this font and just copy this. So I've already done this. So all the icons are here. Now let's right click and open this with live server. So these are the icons. So now we have the contact for this. I'll write contact, and inside this I'm going to create empty divs. In here I'm going to use this envelope box icon, and then I'm going to create a span tag, and in here I'll write gmail.com. Sorry, the span will be inside this div. Again I'm going to create an empty div. Inside this div I'll have the phone icon, and again I'll write span 1-800 200 883. So let's see. So we have the phone icon and the envelope icon. So this is the top part of the navigation bar. Now let's work on the bottom nav. So inside this div bottom nav, we have the logo. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a hamburger icon. So for this I'll create a div with class hamburger, and the icon is this menu right. So in the desktop version, this hamburger icon will be hidden, and when the user view the page on a mobile device, this will be shown. And then I'm going to create a div with a class logo. This will hold the logo. So logo is an image, so I'll write images, use logo.png, and after this we'll have the links. We have these links. So for the links, I'm going to use unordered list. Inside the unordered list, I'll have li. Inside the li, I'll have anchor tag. So this is one way to write, but you can use emmet to write this very easily. So I'll have ul. Inside the ul, I'm going to have li. So we'll have 5 li, so I can write into 5, and inside the li I'm going to have anchor tag. So this is the shortcode, and if I press tab, I'll have 5 li's. So for the fragment identifier, since we are not going anywhere outside the page, I can use the pound symbol. So in order to edit multiple lines at once, you can press command, click here. This will insert multiple cursor, and now just write pound symbol. Here I'll write home. Here I'll write about us, services, instructors, and programs. So let's see. So we have the links. So now I'm going to add some custom properties or variables to define a color. So I'm just copy pasting this. So these are the colors that we are going to use. Primary color, this one. So these colors I've taken from a page design file. So these are the colors. So after this I'm going to use a simple reset by targeting the universal selector and removing the margin and padding that the user agent style sheet by default add to a page. And then I'll write box sizing border box. Then I'm going to target the body tag. In here I'll have font family Noto Sans, and the fallback will be sans serif. The background will be this secondary color, and then overflow X will be hidden. If there is any overflow X, horizontal overflow, it will be hidden. Now if you see, we have this pattern on our body. This I'm going to add. So we have this pattern inside this images folder, this pattern. So inside this body tag, I'm going to use background image, and inside the images we have this pattern. Then background repeat will be repeat, because I want to repeat the image, that's why I've written repeat. And then background size will be auto, and background position, this property will be top left. So a pattern will start from this top left. See, we have this pattern now. Next I'm going to use the pseudo element selection, and I'll give it a background color to this primary color, and the color of the text will be white. So what it does is, if you select any text, you will get this color, this background color, and this we have this background color and this text color. Next, let's add the styles for the typography. So the H1, the font family will be Noto Serif, and the fallback will be serif. The font size will be 2.625 rem. I'm using relative unit here. So 1 rem equals 16 pixel. So 2.625 rem equals 42 pixel. Just multiply 16 into 2.625. You will get 42 pixel. So it's better to use rem when you declare font size, because if a user decides to zoom in on a page or zoom out, the font size will adjust itself. But if you're using absolute unit like pixels, the font will not adjust itself. So for better user experience, it's good to use a relative unit. The color will be black and font weight will be bold. So for bold we write 900. Now I'm just going to copy this. For the H2, this will be 1.875, so this will equal 30 pixel, and the font weight will be semi bold. For this we'll write 600. For H3, I'm just going to paste this, going to remove this font weight, and the font size will be 1.375 rem. So in here you can see we are repeating ourselves. This H1, H2, H3 all have this font family and this color. So what I can do is just copy these two rules and write H1, H2, H3 and paste these two rules, and now I can remove this. So this is a better way to do this. Now after this, let's target the paragraph. The font size will be 1 rem, which equals 16 pixel. The color will be black and line height will be 1.75. Then I'm going to target the span tag. In here I'll use font size 0.75 rem, which is equal to 12 pixel. Then I'm going to target the anchor tag. I'm going to remove the default underline that the user agent style sheet inserts. So text decoration will be none, and the font size will be 1 rem. Color will be black. Now let's define the container. See this container, the frame is 1280 pixel. We are going to use a container. The max width will be 1280 pixel. Margin 0 auto. Let me show you why I'm doing this. Let's give it a border of 2 pixel solid red. Let me first comment this. So to comment, press command and /. Now in here you can see we have this 1280 pixel container and it is aligned to the left, but I want this container to be at the center, so that's why I'm using margin 0. 0 means top and bottom, and this one right and left. So from the right and left I'm giving it auto. See, now a container is in the middle. So you can also write margin inline auto. If I remove this, we'll have the same effect. Now I'm going to remove this border and I'll add a padding. Top and bottom padding will be 0 and right and left padding will be 40 pixel. After this, I'm going to create a class P80. So this class will have a padding top and bottom 80 pixel, right and left 0. So this will be a utility class. Now let's work on the navigation bar. So I'll begin a comment, navigation. Here first I'm going to target the nav tag. So as you know that our nav is divided into top nav and bottom nav, and they are stacked on top of each other. So what I'm going to do is I'll first display this to flex and I'll change the direction to column. By default it is row, so I'm going to change this to column so that these two elements, this top nav and this bottom nav, will stack on top of each other. Now in here I'm going to target the top nav. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to target the top nav. So I'll write top nav. So now CSS supports nesting. So inside this nav we have this top nav, so I can just write top nav inside this nav. Previously we used to write like this. after this curly braces. Now I can nest it because the top nav is inside this nav. So I'm going to target the top nav and I'll write display flex. So the item will stack horizontally. Now I'll set justify content space between. So we'll have the space. Now I'm going to write align items center. So vertically we'll align this, and I'll add a margin top 24 pixel. We have some margin from the top. Now I'm going to work on this icon. I'm going to add some margin. So the icons are inside this top nav, so I can write inside this icons I tag margin right 8 pixel. So we have this margin 8 pixel. We have this margin 8 pixel. This is the Google Chrome extension which is called pesticide. It helps to visualize the box model. Now I'm going to work on this section, contact section. As you can see, this contact section is aligned vertically. I'm going to display this horizontally, and this contact section is inside this container, parent container, and which has two elements, these two elements, div and div. So I can write contact, set the display property to flex. By default, all the flex items are stacked horizontally, so this will take up horizontal position. Then I'm going to set a gap of 24 pixel between the two links, between the two divs. Now let's work on this individual div. I want to align this icons. Let me first split the screen so that you can also see the markup. I'm going to hide this. So I'm now going to work on this div. So this div is inside this contact, so I can write like this div. I'll set a display flex property and I'll align the item to center. So let's see. Now the icons are aligned, properly aligned. Let's add some margin. So this I tag is inside this div, so I can write I'll set a margin right 4 pixel. So we have a little margin here, this 4 pixel margin. So this is the top nav. Now let's work on the bottom nav. So I forget to add one element here. We have this line, so I need to add this between the top nav and the bottom nav. So here I'll write HR. Now first I'm going to style this HR. So this HR is outside this top nav, that's why I'm going here. I'll target the HR. I'll give it a margin top and bottom 16 pixel, right and left 0. Let me first bring it here. I'll set a background color to hash db. Height will be 1 pixel and border will be none. So we have this HR. Now I'm going to target the bottom nav. So I'll write bottom nav. Here again I'm going to set the display property to flex to move the element horizontally. Next I'll write justify content space between. So we have this space. Since we have 3 elements inside the bottom nav, this hamburger icon, that's why this logo is in the center. For the desktop version I'm going to remove this. So let me first write align center, align item center. This will vertically align the item, and then I'll give it a position relative. I'll explain you why I've given the position relative a little later. Then I'm going to work on the hamburger. I'm going to remove this. Since this hamburger is inside this bottom nav, I'm nesting it, hamburger. I'll set the display property to none. See, the hamburger is gone and now our logo is correctly positioned. Now I'm going to target this UL. I'll set the list style type to none. I'll set the display to flex, so it will get horizontally aligned. And I'm just going to give it a gap of 32 pixel. So we have this gap 32 pixel. So we have created the navbar for the desktop version. So now let's work on the mobile version. So if I shrink down the page, it's look like this. So now I'm going to write media queries. So after this bottom nav, but inside this nav element, I'm going to write media query specific to this section. So at media max width 768 pixel. So the rules that I'm going to write inside this will only get applied when the device size is less than 768 pixel. Here I'm going to target the top nav and I'll just remove this. So display will be none. So the top nav is gone. I'm going to remove the HR, so I can write HR. Now let's work on this bottom nav. So I'll write bottom nav. I'll give it a margin top 16 pixel so that we have some margin from the top, and I'll set the flex direction to column, so it will position itself vertically. Since we have added this display flex here, we don't need to write it here. I can just write flex direction column without writing display flex. Now I'm going to give it a gap of 32 pixel so that we have this gap. Now let's work on the hamburger icon. So the hamburger icon is inside this bottom nav. So I'm going to write here hamburger. I'll set the display property to block so that it is visible. Now I'm going to set the position property to absolute to place it where I want it to be, and then I'll give right. From right it will be 8 pixel. So from right it will be 8 pixel. I'll set the font size to 40 pixel and I'll set the cursor to pointer. So we have this. Now let's work on this UL. So inside this bottom nav, I'll write UL. I'll set a width to 100%. Let me first remove this and I'll show you why I'm setting width to 100%. So first what I'm going to do is flex direction to column so that all the elements are vertically stacked. Then I'll set a background color to this primary color. Now you can see the width is equal to the size of the children. So that's why I'm setting the width property to 100% so that it occupies the entire container. Now I'll give it a padding of 24 pixel so that we have this padding. Now let's work on this anchor. Color will be white and I'm going to set a padding on this LIs. So I'll write LI, padding top and bottom 16 pixel, right and left 0. So we have this padding. Now here I want to write some JavaScript code so that I can add the toggle action. So initially it will be hidden, this UL will be hidden, but when the user click on this hamburger icon, it will get shown. So for this I'm going to create a class. Outside this UL I'm going to create a class show menu, and in here I'll write display block, but initially the display will be none, so it is gone. So when the user clicks on the hamburger icon, this show menu class gets applied to this UL and it will get displayed. So in the JS file, app.js file, I'm going to write the JavaScript functionality. So now open up app.js file. So in here I'm going to select this hamburger by this class name. So I'll write document.querySelector. I'm going to select this class. So just copy this, paste it here, and I'm going to add an event listener, and the event will be click. And when the user click, I'm going to run a function, and inside this function I'm going to select the UL. So document.querySelector, I'm going to select nav UL, and then just I'm going to toggle the class. So class list dot toggle show menu class, and then I have to add the JS file to a index.html file. So just before the closing body tag, write script, and here app.js. So let's see. So if I click on this, we have this menu. So this is the navigation section for the desktop version and the mobile version. Now we are going to work on the hero section. So in the index.html file, I'm going to write the markup for the hero section. So after this nav, I'm going to begin a comment, hero content start. Duplicate this by pressing Option Shift and down arrow, and here I'll write end. Now inside this, I'm going to create a section with the class hero and also a class container, which is a utility class. So inside this section, I'm going to create two divs. So we have the left part, this part, and this part. So for the left part, I'm going to give it a class name, hero content, and for the right part, I'm going to create a div with a class hero img. Now in the hero content, we are going to use h1 tag, and in here I'm just going to copy this and paste it here, or you can also copy it from here. I'll provide the design file, then I'll write h2. For the h2, we have this text, paste it here, then I have a paragraph. So just copy the content. After the paragraph, I have two buttons. So these two buttons I'm going to put inside a div with a class called CTA. Now the button will be anchor tag. I'll style the anchor as a button. I'll give it a class first. This will be button and a primary class. And here I'll write learn more. I'm going to duplicate this one more time, and I'm just going to change this to coast, and here I'll write our programs. Let's first see how it looks like. Now let's add the image. So this is inside images, and this is pg.image, and for the alternate text, background image. So we have the image. Now let's style this. So in the style.css file, after this nav section, I'm going to begin a comment, hero section. Then I'm going to target the div with the class hero. As I've told you, we have two main container element inside this hero class, this hero content and hero image, and for the time being they are vertically stacked, but I want it to stack horizontally. So I can just write display flex, so it will stack horizontally, and then I'll write justify content space between, and then a line item to center. So this will move down. So after this I'm going to add a margin on these elements, so I can select like this, margin 24 pixel 0. So this plus is adjacent sibling selector. So what this means is, select any element that is immediately preceded by another element. So here, as you can see, we have 1 2 3 4 elements. So this will select any element that is immediately preceded by another element. So this h2 is immediately preceded by h1. So this h2, so in this h2 this margin will get applied. This p is immediately preceded by this h2, so here this margin will get applied. But this h1 is not immediately preceded by any element, so the margin is not going to get applied on this h1. So if I inspect this, you will see this h1 has no margin, but this h2 has a margin 24. This paragraph has a margin 24 pixel. So this is what I have done using that adjacent sibling selector. Now let's work on the button. So I'm going to write the styling for the button in the general styling area, because I'm going to use it in a different section of a page. Like here we are going to use, so I'll write the CSS for the button in the general styling area. So here I'm going to target the class button. I'll set the display property to inline block. Background color will be primary color. I'll give it a padding top and bottom 8 pixel, right and left 24 pixel, and the color will be white. And for the ghost button, I'm going to set the background color to transparent, and I'll give it a box shadow to create a kind of border. So I'll write inset top 0, y 0, blur 0, and for the spread 2 pixel, and the color will be black. So let's see. So we have the button. I'm going to change the color to black here for the text. So these are our buttons. After this, I'm going to highlight this yoga ashram. So for this, I'm going to use inline styling, which you can directly write in the HTML file. So here I'll write span. I'll put this yoga ashram inside the span, and I'll use a style, and I'll set the font size to 2.625 pixel, 2.625 rem, and background color to this one, DE 6664, and a padding, all around padding I'm going to put 8 pixel, and the color of the text to white. Let's see. So this is how it's look like. Next, I'm going to add a little margin between these two buttons. So I'll go back to the hero section. In here, I'll target the CTA button, and I'm going to select the first child. This first button I'm going to select, and I'll give it a margin right of 16 pixel. So I can do this by, and then I'm going to use the nth child pseudo selector. I'll select the first child, and I'll set a margin right to 16 pixel. So we have this margin. So we have created the hero section for the desktop version. Now let's work on the mobile version. So if I shrink down the page, it looks like this. So inside this hero, I'm going to write the media query. So I'll write at media max width 768 pixel, and here I'm going to set the flex direction to column on the parent. So this is the parent, so I'm going to select the parent by using the ampersand, and in here I'll change the flex direction to column. So these two sections are vertically aligned. Now I'll target the hero content, which is also inside the parent. So I'll write hero content. I'll set a margin top to 54 pixel. So we have this margin, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this hero image little bit to the top. So I can use negative margin. So I'll first target the hero image. I'll give it a margin top of -150 pixel. So this image will move a little bit up. And finally what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the padding which we have given to this orange box. So I can target the span which we have created, this span. So the span is inside H1. I'm going to remove the padding to 0, but this will not work. This style attribute in the index.html file has a higher specificity. That's why this styling is being applied. So for these styling to be overridden, I have to use the important flag here. So now the padding is removed. So this is the hero section for the mobile version. Next we are going to add that animation effect, this scaling in and scaling out animation effect. For the animation, after this hero section, I'm going to create keyframes. So add keyframes, and the name for the keyframe will be subtle up down. You can name it anything you want. And for the 0%, for the starting point, I want transform to be the default size, so scale 1. And for the 50%, the transform will be 1.05, a little bit scaled up. And for the 100%, I want it back to 1, so transform scale 1. So this is the keyframes. Now I'm going to create a class scale up down. In this class I'll create the animation, this subtle up and down. I want this for 5 seconds, ease in and out, and I want this to run infinite times. So now this is not working. We need to apply this class scale up down class to this hero image. So now the animation is working. Next we are going to work on the about section. So let me expand this, and after this hero content end, let's begin a comment about us section start end, and in between I'm going to create a section tag with a class about us, and also I'm going to give it a class container, and also I'm going to give it a class called P80 which we have created. See this class P80 class for the padding top and bottom 80 pixel. Now inside this section I'm going to create a container for our cards. So this is a section that we are going to design. So this has 3 cards. So I'm going to wrap this in a container called cards. Now inside this we'll have 3 cards. So I'll create a div with a class card. Then I'm going to create a div with a class about icon, and inside this I'm going to have the image. The images inside the images folder, icon 1. And after this I'm going to create the content for the card. So about content, in the content I have h3 meditation practice. Let me copy it from here. and I have a paragraph and paste it here. So this is the design, the markup for one card. Very simple, just copy this entire card and paste it 2 times, and let's change the content. For the icon, let's change this to 2, 3, and for the H3, copy this, paste it here, copy this, paste it here. So we have the markup for the card. Now let's write the styles. So after the hero section, let's begin a comment about us. In here I'm going to target the class about us, this section class. In here I'm going to target the cards, which is a wrapper. I'll set the display property to flex and justify content space between. So this is our cards now, neatly stacked horizontally, and I'm going to give it a gap of 32 pixel. So we have a gap here. Now I'm going to target individual cards. So inside this wrapper, this is the wrapper and all the cards are within this. So I'm going to write inside this card, and I'm going to set padding all around 24 pixel, border radius 16 pixel, and I'm going to set display property to flex because I want to center the element. Align item center. See, when I set the property to display flex, the contents are horizontally aligned. This is the default behavior. I want this in column, so I am going to change flex direction to column. Now it is arranged in a column. After this, I'll write text align center. So this will get aligned to the center. Now I'm going to change the background color to white color. And for the individual element, I'm going to set a gap. Since these elements are flex child, I'm going to give it a gap of 16 pixel. So I'll write gap 16 pixel. So we'll have this vertical gap. Then finally I'm going to apply the box shadow. So box shadow, so for horizontal shadow it will be 0 pixel, vertical it will be 4 pixel, for the blur it will be 32 pixel, for the spread it will be 0, and for the color I'm going to use a black color, very light black color, 0.05. So we have this nice box shadow here. Now let's work on this icons. So I'll write about icon. This is the icon that we are going to work on, this class about icon, which has the image. So if you see here, we have this circle around the icon. So this we are going to create. So width will be 80 pixel, height will be 80 pixel, and border radius will be 100% to make it a circle. Let's give it a background color red just to see. So we have the circle. Now I'm going to align the icon inside this circle. Let's change the display property to flex, align item center, and justify content center. So we have the icons neatly arranged inside this div. Now I'm going to change the background color to this tertiary color. Now let me set margin to all the elements. So what I can do is I can write about content, and I'm going to target every element. So this is the about content class, and I'm going to target each element, and I'm going to give it a margin bottom of 16 pixel. So this H3 will have a margin bottom of 16 pixel, and this text will have a margin bottom of 16 pixel. So this is the cards for the desktop version. Now let's make it for the mobile version. So when you shrink down the page, it looks like this. So after this about content, but inside this about us class, I'm going to create the media queries. So add media max width 768 pixel, and in here I'm just going to change the flex direction of our cards container to column. Flex direction to column. See, now the cards are stacked vertically. I'm going to set a width of 80%. So we have this cards 80% wide, and I'm going to set margin 0 auto to place it at the center. So this is the card section. Now we are going to work on this section. So back in the code, I'm going to write the markup for that section. So inside this about us section, after this div, this cards div, I'm going to create another div with a class about main. Inside this we have two parts, this left part and this right part. So I'm going to create two more divs, about left and about right. Now in the about left I have the image, so I'll write img. Under the images folder we have this about pic. So let's see. So we have the image. Now in the about right content, I'll write the different typographic content like h2. So let's copy the content from the main file. We'll paste it here, but this best yoga center is wrapped within a span. So I'll write span. I'm going to change the color of it. Then we have paragraphs. Just copy this paragraph, or you can write anything you like. Paste it 2 times. Then we have the button. So for the button we have anchor tag, and in here the text is learn more, and I'm going to give it a class called btn. So this is the markup for the about main section. Now let's style this. Inside this about us class, I'm going to write the styles. I'm going to target the about main class. I'll set the display property to flex. Let me show you why I'm doing this. Now this is vertically stacked. I'm going to place it horizontally. So I'll set the display property to flex. So this will get horizontally aligned. Now I'm going to set the justify content property to space between. Then I'm going to give it a gap of 60 pixel. So we have this gap of 60 pixel. Now I'm going to align this item to center, vertically align. So I'll write align item to center. Now I'm going to set a margin top 50 pixel. So we have little bit margin between the cards and this. So I'll write margin top, if I can write that, margin top 50 pixel. So we have this margin. Then I'm going to work on this section, so about right. So after this, inside the main, I'm going to write about right. In here I'm going to first target the span. The font size I'm going to increase 32 pixel. This span I'm targeting. After this I'm going to change the color to primary color. Why it's not working? Let me check. I have added a dot here. Now let's work on the H2. I'll set a margin bottom 32 pixel, and the paragraph margin bottom 24 pixel, and for the button I'm going to set a margin top of 24 pixel. Now let's write the media queries. So currently it looks like this. So inside this about us section, I'm going to write the query. So after this, I'll write at media max width 768 pixel, and I'm going to target the about main container, and I'll set the flex direction to column. Let's see. And then I'm going to target this about right and give it some padding. So about right, I'll set all around padding of 16 pixel. So this is the mobile version for the about us section. Now let's work on the service section. So the service section has a header, and the main content is divided into 3 parts. So let's write the markup. Now inside the HTML file, after this about us section end, I'm going to create a comment, service section start and service section end. Now in between, I'm going to create a section with a class service, and I'm going to give it a class called container. Now inside this section, I'm going to first create the header. It will have h2 tag, what we offer. Then I'm going to create an empty div for this line. After this, I'm going to create a paragraph with some lorem text. Just I'm going to copy this from here and paste it here. So this is the header part. Now let's work on the content. So I'm going to create a div with a class called service main, and this main I'm going to add the padding, all around padding 80 pixel. Inside this we'll have 3 columns, so I can divide this like this: div left, this one will be middle, and this one will be last, or let me say right. Now inside the left div we have this UL links, so I can write UL li. So we have 6 LIs, so I can write into 6, and inside the li we have h4 tags. So we have created the UL meditation. Let's fill this up. So let's see. So we have the UL. Now let's work on the middle section, this section. Here I also have a h2 and a paragraph. I'm just going to copy the content from here. So this is the middle section. Now let's work on the right section, which has an image. So image, under images we have this img to png. So we have the image also. Now let's style this. Back in the style.css file, after this about section, I'm going to create a comment, service section. Then I'm going to target the main container, the section class service. Inside this I first have the header, so I'll write header. I'll set a width to 45%, margin 0 auto, place it at the center horizontally, then text align will be center. So let's see. So we have this. Now I'm going to work on the div which is inside the header. To create the underline, I'll set the position to relative, width will be 100 pixel, height will be 2 pixel, left, from left it will be 45%, or let's say 40%, and I'll set a margin top and bottom 32 pixel, right and left 0, and finally I'm going to give it a background color to this black color. So let's see. So we have this underline. Next, let's work on the service, this 3 sections. So these 3 sections are wrapped within service main, this service main class. So inside this service class, I'm going to write service main, and inside this we have 3 section, left, middle and right. So in the service main, first I'm going to set the display to flex so that every child, the left, middle and right are horizontally aligned. So see, this is horizontally aligned. Now I'm going to set a gap of 48 pixel. So we have a gap here. Now let's work on this left section here, so which is also inside service main. So I can write left, and so here I'm going to set a width for this left section. So I can do that using the flex basis property. I'll set it to 20%. So it will take up 20% of the entire container. Then let's work on the UL. So UL, first I'm going to remove the styles, list style type none. Again I'm going to set it to display flex because I want to give a gap to each items. So I can do that easily. I can set flex direction to column, and I can just say gap of 32 pixel. So we have a gap of 32 pixel. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make all these items a little bit light in comparison to the first item, like what I've done here. So I'm going to select every child which is not a first child. So that I can do using the not selector. So I'll write, so I have to write inside this not first child, and opacity I'm going to set this to 0.3. So we have this. I am not writing the JavaScript functionality wherein if I click on the link this changes. I'm just writing the markup and the styling. Now let's work on the middle section. So after this left, I'm going to target the middle class. I'll set the flex basis to 50%. In here I'm going to target H2, margin bottom 16 pixel. Then I'm going to target the paragraph, and I'll set a line height of 2.5. Let's see. And finally I'm going to work on this right section. I'll set the flex basis to 30%. So the remaining width 30%. Here I've taken 50%, 50 plus 20, 70, and the remaining is given to this image. So this is the markup for the desktop version. Now let's work on the mobile. So in mobile it looks like this. Now here I'll write at media, max width 768 pixel. I'm going to target the header first. I'll set the width to 100%. So the header takes up the entire width of the container. After the header, I'll target the service main class. In here, I'm just going to change the flex direction to column. So all these 3 sections, left, middle and right, will get vertically stacked. And after this, I'm going to add a gap of 60 pixel here. So we have a gap of 60 pixel. Then I'm going to work on this image. I want to make this 100%. So here I'll do right image, width will be 100%. So let's see, it will take up the entire width of the container. So this is the service section. Now we are going to work on this instructor section. So back in the index.html file, and after this service section, I'm going to create a comment, instructor section start and end. Now here I'm going to create a section with the class instructor container, and also I'm going to give it a utility class container, and also that p80 class. Now here we'll have the header, this h2. What I can do, I can just copy this header from this service section and paste it here. Let's change this to Meta instructor. So this is what we required. After this header, I'm going to have a wrapper called instructors, which will have 4 cards. So I'm going to create a div with the class instructors, and inside this we'll have 4 cards. So for each card I'll have a class called instructor. Now inside this we'll have the image of the instructor. So this is test1, then we have h3 tag, then we have a paragraph tag. So let's see. So we have the first instructor here. Now I'm going to duplicate this 3 more times. So just copy this div, paste it 3 more times, change the images, now this is vertically stacked, and now I'm going to change the names. Let's change it from here, copy this, so forward. So let's see. Now let's work on the styling. So after this section I'm going to create a comment, instructor section. I'll target the instructor container. So this container I'm going to target. Within this we have the header. So for the header I'm going to just copy the styles from here and paste it here. So we have the header done. Now let's work on the cards. So our cards are wrapped within this div. So I'm going to target this class, and inside this first I'm going to change the display property to flex so that it is now horizontally aligned, and then I'll write justify content space between so that we have some space and it fills the container. Then I'll set a margin top of 50 pixel. So we have the margin 50 pixel. So this is the instructor section for the desktop version. Now let's work on the mobile version. So after this instructor I'm going to write the media queries. So I can write at media, max width will be 768 pixel. Now inside this I'm going to target the header first, and I'll set the width to 100%. Then I'm going to target the instructors. This class I'm going to target. Let's copy this, and I'm going to change the flex direction to column and a line item center and a gap of 32 pixel. So let's see. So this is the instructor section. Now let's work on this testimony section, which has a carousel. I'm using swiper.js for this. So let's build this. So back in the index.html file, and after this instructor section, I'm going to create a comment for testimony. Inside this we'll have a class. Inside this I'm going to create a section with the class testimony, and also I'm going to give this a class called container. Now in here we'll have the same thing, the header, which is common. I'll paste the header. Let's change this text to testimony. Now after this we have to add that carousel. So for the carousel I'm using this swiper.js. So you can go to this site, swiperjs.com. Here click on this docs and click on this getting started button. Now here we are going to use the CDN. So use swiper from CDN. I'm going to copy this link. We need to add the script also. First I'm going to copy the link and paste it, and I'm going to paste this before the style.css file. Then I'm going to copy the script and I'm going to paste this script before this app.js file, so that the swiper is accessible to the app.js file. You cannot place this after app.js file. In that case it will not work. So then we'll add the markup. Here we have this basic markup. I'm just going to copy this, and after the header I'm just going to paste this. Let's indent this first. Now in here we need this swiper class, we need this swiper wrapper class, and inside this we are going to create the slides within this swiper slides. So I'm going to remove this. I'm just going to remove these two, and in here I'm going to create the slide. So first we have the image, which is inside the images, test1. Then we have h3 tag. Then we have the paragraph. I'm going to paste the text for the paragraph. So this is the markup for one slide. Now what I'm going to do is just copy paste this 2 times. So we have total 3 slides. Now I'm going to change the images, so test2 and test3. So we have the slide, but it is not working now. We need to initialize it. For the initialization we need to copy this JavaScript code and paste it at the app.js file. Now in here I'm going to make some changes. First let me indent this. So for the direction I'm going to change this to horizontal, and I'm going to add a new property, autoplay. Here the delay will be 3 seconds. So for this write 3000 in millisecond, and I will write disable on interaction equal false, colon false. Then for the pagination, this 3 buttons, now this is not working. So here I'll write clickable to true. So now I can click this, and I'm going to remove this scroll bar. We don't need a scroll bar. So this is all what we need to do in the app.js file. Now let's style this. So in the style.css file, after this instructor section, I'll write the comment testimony. Then I'm going to target the testimony class. Again here I'm going to just copy paste this header. Now after this header, let's work on the slides. So I'll target the swiper class. In here I first set the margin top to 48 pixel. I'll give it a width of 100%, a height of 300 pixel, a border radius 16 pixel, background color will be white, and I'll give it a box shadow of X 0 pixel, for Y 4 pixel, for the blur 32 pixel, for the spread 0 pixel, and for the color RGBA 0.05. So let's see. So now it looks like this. Now I'm going to work on the individual slides. So I'll target this class swiper slide. In here we have this div. I have not created this. I want to wrap these three things inside a div, empty div. So I'll create an empty div and paste it here. So these three things will be inside this empty div. Again, I'm going to do this for the second one. So now I'm going to target this empty div. I'll set the display property to flex. Flex direction will be column. Justify content center. Now align items. Center, I'll give it a height of 100%, a width of 50%. Margin will be 0 auto to bring it to the center horizontally. I'll give a text align property to center, and I'll give a gap of 24 pixel. So now let's work on the image. So write img, height will be 70 pixel, width will be 70 pixel to make it round, and border radius will be 100%. Now I'm going to add one more property. Object fit will be cover. Then I'm going to work on this button, previous and after button. So here I'll target these two classes. Then this one. But I'm going to target the after element. So I'll write after, this after pseudo element, and in here I'll change the font size to 20 pixel, and the color will be this black color. So this is a slider for the desktop version. Now let's work on the mobile version. So add media, max width 768 pixel. Now for the header, we'll set the width to 100%, and then I'm going to target the slides. So I'll write swiper dot swiper slide. I'll target the div. Inside the div I'll set the width to 100% and a gap to 8 pixel. Let's see. Now I'm going to target h3. So this h3 is inside this div. I'll set the font size to 1 rem, and also I'll target the paragraph and I'll set the font size to 0.8 rem. So this is a style for the mobile version. Here I need to do one thing. As you can see, we have this scroll bar. So I'm going to remove this div. We don't need a scroll bar. so the scroll bar is removed. So after the testimony section, I'm going to make the CTA section here. So back in the index.html file, I'm going to begin a comment, CTA section start and end, and within this I'm going to create a section with a class called CTA. Inside this I'm going to create a div with a class called container. Now the CTA section is divided into two parts, the left part and the right part. The left part contains the text and the right part has this image. So in the left we have a h2 tag. Let's paste this text, and then we have a paragraph. Just copy this paragraph, or you can write anything you like. Then we have the button. Segment identifier will be pound, and I'll give it a class called btn, and here I'll write learn more. So this is the left section, this one. Now let's add the image in the right section. So img, under the images we have image 3.png. So we have the image. Now let's write the styles. Begin a comment, CTA section. In here first I'm going to target the CTA class, which is the wrapper. I'll give it a margin top of 100 pixel. I'll set a background color to BG color, this color. Then I'm going to target the container. I'll set the display property to flex so that these are horizontally aligned. Then I'm going to write justify content space between. Then I'll write align item to center to vertically align this. Here I'm going to specify a height of 300 pixel and a position. I'm going to give this container class a position relative, because I'm going to give this image position absolute and position this image based on this container. Then let's work on the left section. I'll give it a width of 50%, and I'm going to set a margin to a paragraph 24 pixel top and bottom. Now let's style the image. I'll give it a position absolute. I'll give the top a value of minus 70 pixel to move it a little bit up, and from the right I want this image to go 10 pixel. So this is the desktop version. Now let's write styles for the mobile version. So inside the CTA section I'm going to write media queries, max width 768 pixel. In here I can select the parent, which is the CTA class, this CTA class, using this ampersand sign, and inside this we have the container. So I'll give it a height of 400 pixel when we are viewing the page in a mobile device. And I'm going to remove the image. I'm going to just remove the image, and I'll make the width of the left section 200%. So here I'll make the width of the left section 200%. So this is the CTA section. Next we are going to work on this program section. So back in the index.html file, after this begin a comment, program section start, end, and within this I'm going to create a section with the class program and also a class container, and here I'm going to give it the class p80, which is for padding. Now inside this section we'll have a header h2, our upcoming programs. Then we'll have the empty div for the underline. Then we have some paragraph. I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to copy this paragraph and paste it here. So this is the header. Next I'm going to create a wrapper called program cards, which will have all the cards. Next I'm going to create individual card. For the card I'm going to give it a class called pcard. In here first I'll have an image which is inside the images folder, this image 4. Then we have an h4 tag. After this h4 I'm going to create an empty div which contains these two. So I'll write div. For the icon the code is i.bx bx calendar. Then we have the span tag, let's say 13 April 2024. Again I'm going to create an empty div which will contain this icon and this text. So I'll write I bx this code, and then we'll have a span. After this we have a button. This will have a class called btn read more, and then I'm going to add this arrow. For this I'm going to write bx right arrow alt. So let's see. So we have this arrow. So this is the markup for the individual card. I'm going to just copy this and paste it 2 more times, 1 and 2. For the time being I'm just going to change the image, I'm not going to change the text. So we have these 3 cards. Now let's style this. So after the CTA section, begin a comment, program section. In here I'll target the program class. First I'm going to write the markup for the header, which I can just copy it from here. And paste it. So we have the header. Now let's work on the cards. First I'm going to target the wrapper, which is program cards. I'll set the display to flex so that it gets horizontally aligned. I'll set the justify contents space between. I'll give it a gap of 32 pixel. Then I'm going to align it vertically. So align items center, and I'll set a margin top of 100 pixel. Now let's target this h4. I'll give it a margin top and bottom 16 pixel, right and left 0. Then I'm going to target the individual cards. So we have p card, this class. Here first I'm going to set the background color to white. I'll give it a padding, all around padding of 16 pixel. I'll set a border radius of 16 pixel. I'll give it a box shadow 0 horizontally, for the vertical 4 pixel, for the spread 32 pixel, and this 0 pixel, and the color will be this one. Next I'm going to target this icon, which is inside a div. So I'll write div icon. I'll give it a color. This is a different color, 00 FFCC, and I'll set a padding top and bottom 8 pixel, right and left 0. Then I'm going to work on this anchor. In the case of this anchor, we don't need this class, so I'm going to remove this. We need to style it differently. So here I'll write anchor. The color will be primary color. Display will be inline block. And margin top 16 pixel. Let me remove it from everywhere. So this is a card for the program section. Now let's work on the mobile version. So I'll write at media, max width 768 pixel. I'll write program cards display, and I'll give it a flex direction column. So let's see. So this is neatly stacked vertically. So this all we need to do for the program cards. Now finally we are going to work on the footer. So for the footer, back in the index.html file, I'll create a footer tag. Here I'm going to give it a class called P80, which is a utility class. Then inside this I'm going to create a container. Now our footer has 4 columns, so I'm going to create 4 columns. So call 1, I'm going to duplicate this 3 more times, change this to 2, 3, 4. Now in the call 1 we have the logo. I'll create a class called logo, and I'm going to paste the image. So this is images and logo. So we have the logo. Next, in the call 2 we have links, this one. So I'll first create a h3 tag, links, then a ul tag. Inside the ul we have 5 LIs, li into 5, and each li has an anchor. So I can write this. Let's go to multi cursor mode by pressing command and clicking here, and in here I'll write home, about us, services, instructor, programs. Then for the column 3 we have this contact. So in the column 3 I'm going to create an h3 tag. I'll write contact, then I'm going to create a ul which will have 3 LIs. In here I'll write FAQ, chat, and blog. And finally in the column 4 we have this social icons. So for the social icons I can just copy and paste this code which we have, here we have this top nav bar. I can copy the code from there and paste it here. So let's see. So this is the footer now. Now let's style it. Go to style.css file. I'm going to give it a background color. Of footer, I have a different color for this. Then I'm going to target the container. I'll set this to display flex and justify content space between. Then I'm going to target the UL which is inside the container. So I can write UL, list style type will be none. Then I'm going to target the links. So LIA, I'll set this to display inline block, and I'll set a padding 12 pixel top and bottom, right and left will be 0. Then I'm going to target the column 4. So column 4, I need to add a social icon. I need to add here h3 tag social. I'll do text align center, and then I'm going to work on the icons. So I'll write icons I'll set a margin, a very little margin of 4 pixel. So this is the footer for the desktop version. Now let's make it for the mobile one. So I'll write at media max width 768 pixel. In here I'm going to target the container. So I'll write container. I'll change the flex direction to column. I'll give it a gap of 54 pixel, and then I'm going to paste this here. So I'll write call for text align left. Let's see. So this is the footer for the mobile version. So we have created the entire page, and I hope you learned something out of this. If you like this video, please give it a like and also subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video.